did I get involved in the Israeli-Palestinian situation? I'm not sure myself, but life takes us into strange situations. But I'd like to speak a little bit about Northern Ireland. In the Troubles in Northern Ireland in 1976, we found ourselves really on the brink of civil war. Things were very, very bad. We were caught up in a vicious circle of violence, and every day in the north there was bombs either from the IRA or the loyalist groups or the soldiers, and people didn't know what to do to actually break this cycle of violence. We didn't want it, but it seemed impossible to be able to get out of it. There was an awful sense of despair. And tragically, on the 10th of August 76, one of my younger sisters, Anne, went walking with her 4 children. There was a clash between an active service unit of the IRA and the British Army, and my sister's 3 children were killed in this, and she was dangerously ill. And it was, for a lot of people in Northern Ireland, a breaking point, because we'd suffered so much every day, and here it was a whole little family just almost wiped out. So when myself and another woman and a young journalist, we called for people to come out and do something to stop the violence. Our plea was there's got to be another way. That call was responded by with thousands of people throughout Northern Ireland. I mean, they were ready for it, and so we had rallies for 6 months every Saturday. We're all over the place. People walked for peace. And there was a 70% decrease in the rate of violence, and it never returned to the terrible pre-76 times of absolute death and destruction every day. We used the approach that militarism and paramilitarism will not solve deep ethnic political problems. The only way in which to solve these problems is through dialogue, is through negotiation, is through people themselves beginning to commit to non-violence to solve the problem. It took a long time for us to come to where we find ourselves today in Northern Ireland, which is with a devolved government, power-sharing executives, implementation of many of the things that were in the Good Friday Agreement, and thank God most of the guns have been taken out of the situation. Now, how I got involved in the Middle East situation is I was invited by some good friends, some rabbis living in Jerusalem, Rabbi Wyman Kelman and his wife, to visit Palestine, to meet with the rabbis for human rights and against the demolition of Palestinian homes. And I went and I had met Professor Jeff Halper, who some of you will know, and when I went to Jerusalem and went into the occupied territories and met people whose Palestinians whose homes have been demolished, and seen the situation on the ground, I was absolutely shocked by what I experienced there. I also met a man, who's Abu Fayaz. Abu Fayaz was a father of 13 children. He had twice built his home, and it had twice been demolished by the Israelis. And his third home was about to be demolished, and Abu Fayaz was being charged in a military Israeli court for building his home without a permit. So again, I went to Israel to identify with Abu Fayaz. It was strange when I got the call to go. I said to my husband, Jackie, well, I haven't really time to go to that. And my husband, Jackie, is one of 13 children. And we Irish, you know. But when I said to Abu Fayaz, the father of 13 children, my husband said to me, "Oh, Mairead, you must go and you must see what's happening and see if you can do anything." So I said, all right. So I went, and when I went to the military court, and Abu Fayaz was there, and in that military court, which were all these young Israeli males of 14, 15, 16, all being brought up before a military judge, and one by one papers just being stamped where they were being charged for stone throwing, for having papers. I mean, it was unbelievable, because it wasn't justice as we would kind of think of as justice. And I mean, we must remember that today there are 11,000 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. And a lot of them, some of them are handicapped, some of them are dying of cancer, some of them are young women, and they're living under very, very desperate situations. And when I was invited to go to Gaza, I had the privilege of speaking at the Parliament, the Hamas Parliament. And one of the first things I asked in the Hamas Parliament in Gaza in October last year was for the freedom of the young Israeli sergeant Gilad. He's a young Israeli soldier who's being held by the Palestinians within Gaza for nearly 3 years now. And you know, he's somebody's son, and his family worry about him, and it's time. We shouldn't use people as bargaining chips. But when I ask in the Hamas Parliament in Gaza for the freedom of this young Israeli soldier, I was very conscious that 11,000 Palestinians are in Israeli jails, and their families often can't get to visit them. A lot of them are parliamentarians, elected Palestinian parliamentarians, are currently being held in Israeli jails. And I also appealed for the release of Palestinian prisoners, because I really think that somehow we have got to break through this almost inhuman thing that's happening, that so many innocent people are being caught in this terrible tragedy of what's happening between Israel and Palestine. So that was when I went to see this military court and realised that under military detention that Israel is lifting young people, and because in Northern Ireland we experienced emergency laws, and we in our prisons too there were people tortured, let's not forget that, but absolutely nothing on a scale as to what is currently happening in Israel and Palestine. You cannot make a comparison, because we did not in Northern Ireland, thanks be to God, suffer anything as to what is happening currently in Israel and Palestine. Now, I then came out of that situation feeling, well, if there's anything I can do, I most certainly will come back.